All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Thanks for showing up. Today, we're going to have a panel discussion on use cases for embedded Python. Embedded Python, as many of you know, is a new feature of InterSystems IRIS, certainly since last time we were all together in person. The first release was in IRIS 2021.2. And a much improved version is in IRIS 2022.1 that just came out a few weeks ago. And we have some early adopters who have already made a lot of great progress with it. So they wanted to share their stories, and I thought that was fantastic. I'm Bob Kruszewski, if those of you who haven't met me. I'm a product manager on the database platforms team, working on, among many other things, embedded Python. So let me just give you a quick overview of what is embedded Python. We've had a couple of sessions that have touched on this, so I apologize if you've seen this slide before. But embedded Python is about being able to use Python inside the IRIS kernel. A lot of people are technical here, so I can answer a lot of the technical what we're doing. We are loading Python into the IRIS process, so it's all in process running together. Python is designed to be an embedded interpreter, so yeah, this is very natural for Python. It's not something that we're being forced into it. And the beauty of it is all running inside the same process. So when you are making a function call from object script to Python or from Python to object script, you're not shuffling any data around. These are just objects in memory. You're calling a method on it. Like, it's as simple as that. And so performance of that is really, really great when you compare it to the traditional ways of using gateways and those sorts of things. You can use it for a number of use cases. We have an experience lab that just finished today, but we have one, we're rerunning it tomorrow if any of you are interested in trying it out to see, hey, you could write stored procedures with the body of it in Python. You can start with a Python program, a PY file, and import IRIS, and you start that way. You could start with a class file and say, oh, this particular method, the language is Python on it, and they'll all just work. So we are excited about it. So today's panel discussion, we have 3 panelists, one of whom couldn't be here today, so he has been very kind and sent videos to respond to a couple of questions that I had asked him. So over, well, you're all on my left. Yeah. On my left, Ronald Soelkner.
Yeah. Sounds good.
You know, with the last name like Kruszewski, I should really be better about getting pronunciations from people before I'm standing up on stage. So Ronald is a software engineer at Novacom in Germany. We also have, via video, we have Hideyuki Takahashi, and from PALTAC in Japan. And over on my far left is Guillaume Rongier. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
How's
perfect.
my French?
Yeah.
All right, apparently better than my German.
No,
my
it's
apologies.
Guillaume Rongier.
Guillaume?
Guillaume. If it's too difficult for you, just call me Jim.
Who's one of the sales engineers here at InterSystems? Okay, how do I do that? Sorry, we realized we need audio or the video is going to be very uninteresting. Although it's in Japanese, I know a few of you here speak Japanese. Those of you who don't, there are subtitles on the videos.
PALTAC は化粧品、日用品、一般医療品、健康衛生関連商品を扱う卸売業です。年間35億個の商品を出荷しています。受注件数としては7億件以上の処理をしています。5万品の商品を1000社のメーカーより入荷し、ドラッグストア、コンビニエンスストア、スーパーマーケット、大型スーパーなど 400社の小売業へ納品しております。日本全国に16カ所の物流センターを持っております。その物流センターを安定稼働させることが我々のミッションとなります。物流センターの基幹システムは、ユーザーインターフェースは Angular、CSP レストで IRIS に接続しております。データベースは DTM、OpenM、キャシエ、IRIS と30年以上インターシステムズさんの製品を使わさせてもらっております。ユーザーインターフェースもビジュアルベーシック、HTML、リッチクライアント、現在の Angular と時代に合わせた変化をさせてきました。我々は新しいものにチャレンジする会社であります。
Great. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, or you?
Yeah, if you want. Get started. Hi everyone, I'm Guillaume Rongier. You can call me Jim. And I joined InterSystems 3 years ago. And before that, I was an integrator, and I worked on InterSystem software for almost 9 years, something like that. That's it.
Yeah. My name is Ronald Soelkner. I work for Novacom software in Austria. We've been around for 30 years now this year, and we've been using InterSystems products ever since. We started out with MSM database, coding in mumps, and yeah, well, in a nutshell, that's pretty much it.
All right, thank you. So then I was asking about talking about embedded Python use
物流
cases.
センターの適正在庫には需要予測は重要なロジックになります。弊社では需要予測にデータロボットを採用しています。需要予測の AI で一番時間かかるのはモデルの生成です。特徴量の確定や予測のモデルを商品分類やセンターどの単位でまとめたら精度が良くなるかっていうのを試行錯誤して時間をかけてやります。時間のかかる試行錯誤はデータロボットなどのそこで実行して方向性を決めエンベデッド Python でできればコーディングできないかと考えております。それと画像解析ですが弊社ではメーカーより商品情報をもらって商品マスターを作成しています。メーカーの商品情報は間違っていることがあります。実際の商品を裏側の画像を商品情報として文字情報を取得してそのマスターをチェックすることはできないかと考えております。現状の読み取り精度ではフォーマットが一律でないのでバッチ処理はできません。やはり対話式になるとエンベデッド Python 向きだと考えております。またファイルの入出力に関してもパンダスで Excel の入出力ができるようになるので今までのテキストや CSV でしかできなかったことよりも Excel も可能になるというのが嬉しいです。
Yeah, so PALTAC is using embedded Python really to help them with their data science pipeline, right? Using data robot to do data exploration, and then embedded Python to bring that to operation, to operationalize it, as well as, as I said, image recognition or image analysis, right? There's a lot of good libraries out there for Python to do that and to make that part of their workflow. Ronald, how about you? What are you envisioning and using embedded Python for?
Yeah, well, since we're around since 30 years, as it's much of our code base for our software, so we came to the point where we need to redesign our product and to develop a new version of it. And well, we still have parts in the code written in mumps that's been written by people who are already retired now, and nobody really knows what part of code is still in use. And so I think I see a lot of people nodding, so it's probably a common problem. Yeah, well, and so since we cannot just pull the plug on our existing product, so we still need to maintain it. we thought with embedded Python, we found a way to parallel develop parts of our software in Python, the server side, and we'll still be able to use parts of our code from the old days. So that way we could, just or keep our data. We have to redesign our data structure as well, and we can use IRIS to to have parallel data running. To set, like, if you have, we still use globals a lot, and through embedded Python we could access old parts of the code or could access globals, and step by step just replace old code with new code and still have a parallel approach running in two worlds, so to say. So that's what we're aiming for, and I think by using embedded Python, this might work out for us pretty good.
Yeah. I'm totally agree with you. In France, we have the same problem, in fact, and it's not always easy to go big bang. What I mean with big bang is to get rid of all the old stuff and rewrite everything from scratch. Sometimes it's not possible, sometimes it's possible, but most of the time it's not. And that's what's neat with embedded Python. You can have a smooth transition between the old world and the new world. Also, all the feedback I have from customers in France, it's more the learning curve. In fact, when people start to work with InterSystems technology, it's reliable, it's fast, but the point is sometimes that's happened. People get scared about object script. And so it's hard to find people who would like to learn it, and when you find people who would like to learn it, the learning curve sometimes is hard. I don't understand why. Because maybe it's been 10 years I work on object script, and for me that's natural, but yeah. And with embedded Python, really, I can get people work on the InterSystems technology very fast. Just to give you an example, I have my piggy pig. It's an intern, and I can get him to work with our technology in half a day with embedded Python. Really, it's that natural. He just go as he used to learn Python on his school, and after he's ready to work with InterSystems technology. So that's neat. That's a huge progress.
Yeah, so here we're looking at kind of three really interesting use cases, right? One of machine learning and image analysis. How many of you have that problem? Being like, hey, we need to do machine learning. All right, one or two, but not many, not the machine learning crew. How about we have an old application and we would like to modernize it a little bit, and I think, lots of people. I think that's pretty common, right? And more importantly, perhaps, or related to that is hiring. Yeah, right. It's easy to find object script developers, right? Yeah, I just go to Indeed and I say object script, and it just 3,000 just show up, right? Yeah. No, I think these are all pretty common. So the next question I asked, I have to remember which questions I asked when I did this interview and in which order. So I think the next question I asked are, hey, tell us some of the advantages of using embedded Python so far. So we'll hear from
一旦データを外部出力して Python を処理しなくてはならなかったんですが、
I should start at the beginning of his video. My apologies.
今までは一旦データを外部出力して Python を処理しなくてはならなかったんですが、エンベデッド Python ではデータをグローバルから直接処理できるので、プログラムが一本化できます。外部プログラムとして呼び出す必要性がなくなるので、連携がスムーズになり、パフォーマンスが向上します。プログラムのソース管理においても、 IRIS 上で全て管理できるので Python ソースが管理が不要になりソース管理が良くなります。しかし弊社のような DTM より使っている会社にとってはオブジェクトスクリプトで DB アクセスする、SQL を使用しておりません。データフレームの変換やデータフレームから DB へ取り込みなどは SQL は用意されていますが直接の DB アクセスでは用意されていません。そのためデータフレームから処理できる形式に変換するプログラムが必要になりました。コマンド一つで変換できるようになれば SQL を使用していない昔からのユーザーにとっても優しいと思います。今後 Embedded Python で機械学習を大量データで行った場合 CPU は IRIS と Python での取り合いになるのではと考えております。その場合サーバー負荷が心配になってきます。CPU やメモリを Python 用と IRIS 用に割り振るようにできないかというふうに考えております。また Python のバージョンも固定バージョンではなくユーザーで決められるようにしてほしいです。
Right, so I introduced that with the wrong question. So if you were confused as to the answer, that's on me. No, the third question, now that I remember, is what can we improve? What are your concerns and thoughts on embedded Python? And obviously his response was a good one. It was, tied up to his machine learning application, right? He sees the great advantage of embedded Python, making it easier for them to run everything in a single process, to get the data straight from IRIS and into a Pandas data frame. He has questions around, hey, the way to do that today is through SQL, and not all of his data is in SQL. He's got some things where they built their own data model. How many people here have built their own data models? Yeah, more than a few. Pretty common, right? Pretty common for organizations that have been using InterSystems IRIS for a long time. So that's an area where perhaps we can make the product better if that is something that you find interesting. So what about you? What do you think we should be doing to, have you run into any roadblocks or stumbling in your process of working with embedded Python?
Well, for me, works pretty good so far. So what I would need is to have some kind of package. When I use import IRIS in Python, I can, for example, don't use PyInstaller to create an exe file. We still have a lot of users still on Windows, and we're developing our new server side as Windows services. So it needs to run as exe. And that's one thing. It can, our software can stay on the same machine as the IRIS installation. Mm-hmm. But it would be great to have an easier way to use it as a package.
Right, so packaging it up. Packaging your Python code into an executable.
Exactly.
We don't really have a great answer for you on that yet.
Yeah.
Right, so there's an area where I can add it to the list of things that I can do to improve embedded Python.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Guillaume, what are you noticing in your?
Two things, and I guess it's simple things. The first one is when you are executing a shell in embedded Python, you are bound to a namespace, and you cannot easily change namespace. That's common things when you work in ObjectScript. You can change namespace through set $namespace and your new namespace. In embedded Python, you cannot do that yet. So that's one request. And the other request is for the compatibility with ObjectScript. With embedded Python, you have a neat thing that you can go iris.cls and open or do whatever you want with ObjectScript classes. But they do not exist as module. So when you do that, you do iris.cls, open your messages, your persistent classes, or whatever, and you end up with a Python object. And this Python object is iris. The name of your iris class. But it's not a module. So it's kind of weird. When you use it, you would like to have iris. And all the library from IRIS directly natively as module in embedded Python. I wish we can have that.
On the Python side, because that makes things easier for your development tools and your debugging tools.
Yeah, for the development
and that
tools,
sort
and
of thing.
also to just run sometimes.
Right. And the same is true the other way around. Every Python object, no matter its type, looks generic and the same on the object script side. It's just an object of type %sys.python.
Yeah.
Again, we did that, well, for expediency, but maybe there's something we can do there as well.
I'm pretty sure. No, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
And right now, we can definitely, embedded Python, you can work with it right now. It's stable, it's powerful. No, it will evolve, for sure. But right now, it works well.
Yeah. All right, I've got 2 more videos here talking about, hey, what can we do to improve embedded Python?
Python の新しいライブラリーをすぐに使用でき、ネット上にあるコーディングサンプルを即実行できるというのが新技術に対して素早く対応可能。
I'm sorry, this was in response to, hey, what are the main drivers for why you're interested in embedded Python?
のが良いと思っております。AI 技術者はやはり Python ユーザーなので、今後 AI 技術者を採用したときに言語の教育することなく即開発してもらえるというのが利点だと思っております。
What about you? What are your main reasons why embedded Python? Or did we already just cover them right here of hiring people and using modules?
Yeah, that's a big part, I guess. But
Yeah.
as for us, since we have, for us it opens the possibility to access old scripts in a Python environment. So we can, just swap out parts, create new Python code, let's say, and for all the features we don't yet have, we can use our old code. And this is particularly interesting because we're a small team, and we still need half of the developers to maintain the old code. And so we buy ourselves time to redesign our software. And I think that's, for me, or for us at least, the biggest advantage to be able to access our old data and our old code.
Right, gives you that multiple step to get from
Yeah.
here to there. You don't have to have a big bang of, all right, we're going to rewrite this whole library and
Exactly.
swap it all out everywhere.
And you can
be
test it, and you have
much
time
more
to.
modular.
And the customer wouldn't. He won't notice what is old code, what is new code, because in the end, the software works kind of the same, but under the hood, we can, renew the code, renew the data, the structures, and so I guess that buys us time to get new things done without having a full stop to development or to maintenance of our old software.
Great. Do you have anything on that?
Yeah. What I like about embedded Python is the pure Python experience. And when you work with the pure Python experience, you inherit from many things. One of those is you inherit from a powerful debugger. That's a game changer, to have really a powerful. We have debugger in ObjectScript, but the debugger from Python, it's neat. It's great. And other thing, I will give you one feedback. My piggy pig, Luca, with my training. In fact, he's a young developer and he's using modern software. And have you heard about Autopilot? If you've never heard about Autopilot, I will tell you what is it. It's a new plugin from Microsoft, and Microsoft bought GitHub a few years ago. And what they did, they parsed all the open or public repository. And now they do have an autocomplete for Python. What you just do, You just write the definition of your function or your class and build it for you. I work in healthcare, and we had to do a client implementation of Fire, and there is native libraries in Python. And we struggle at some point to create fake data and observation. And with Autopilot, what we just had to do is to create a new observation for this patient. Boom. It proposed us all the code to create a new observation with all the parameters in the raw source as an object in Python. It's just awesome. So to go with embedded Python, you inherit from what all the community is building around. Not only modules, but also the whole experience of modern development.
Yeah, and you can use, modern technologies.
Yeah.
In our case, we're redesigning our front end as well, and we're going to communicate with the backend through gRPC, so it's pretty easy to just get that running in Python.
Yeah.
Or whatever comes along, they're pretty fast in adopting new things.
Yeah, the same thing goes for REST API, not gRPC,
Yeah.
but with Swagger, you can go spec first, and you get the contract with Swagger, and you implement directly the backend. You have all the structure and so on. No, that's neat.
Mm.
Yeah, the whole tool chain for Python,
Yeah.
with so many millions of Python developers, there's all kinds of opportunities to say, hey, I can leverage that rather than perhaps what we're accustomed to in the object script world of having to build many things kind of from whole cloth.
And remember, guys, embedded Python is not only Python inside ObjectScript code. It's also pure Python. So that's next time when you get back to your office and so on, remember that. You can do this way. You have ObjectScript class and you can put Python code inside. But also you can go Python first with embedded Python. And if I have to start again something or maintaining something, I will go Python first and embrace the old libraries inside Python. I will not go ObjectScript Python, I will go Python ObjectScript.
And that's what you're doing, right, in your design, right,
exactly.
I don't want to. But if you bring it on, maybe, yeah.
I mean, it's an advantage for, existing Python software as well. You can just use IRIS from now on and pretty much just, I don't know, maybe through dependency injection or something like that, change the database and use IRIS.
Yeah. All right, so I asked one last question on video here. Just asking for any final thoughts or to leave everyone with.
Python が IRIS 内で使えるようになり、いろんなことができることが増えて嬉しいです。Python を使えるようにしてくれてありがとうございます。Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate the videos and all of that and the subtitles because my Japanese is severely lacking. Anything else that you guys want to make sure that everyone here knows about, hey, use cases for Python, how you've been using it and thinking about it?
I think.
If
Right.
you want, I can.
So maybe more importantly, we should ask the audience,
Yeah.
hey, what questions do you have? What thoughts do you have about embedded Python? I know a few of you are actually using it in production, and so hearing your stories would be fantastic as well. So why don't you come up and ask at the microphone, because we are recording this session.
Hi, I'm Rolf. I'm a sales engineer here in InterSystems as well.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to use a machine learning library that leverages pandas, for example, would I be replicating the table into would that double my storage footprint for that exact table, or would I be pointing to the same data set?
No, when you are using pandas, in fact, pandas, you bring it into memory. So you are not actively moving the data. It's just cache.
Caching it, right?
I'm right?
Yeah, it's in memory. It's using the IRIS result set, and then as you work your way through the data frame, it'll convert as it goes. So your question was about how much memory would be
Yeah,
used?
so that, yeah.
So it's not going to be just one, but it won't be as much as 2 times the size of your data set. I don't know if that helps you.
Well, that's interesting because I thought, like, because with the conversation with Benjamin DeBow mentioning columnar storage, and it's the same concept with pandas. So, think it can be even nothing at all, maybe.
Oh, as far as overhead?
Yeah.
Compared, yeah, it's not going to be huge.
Okay. Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Other questions? Yeah. Microphone. Otherwise, I have to repeat your whole question for everyone.
I have 2 comments. First one is there's an open exchange program project that
Guillaume.
Gio showed us.
Jim.
It's really, really good. Thank you so much.
So if you want, guys, I do have a video, YouTube video. So if for the audience, you would just have a sneak peek of what you're speaking about.
Your
Maybe just
marketing is
after.
excellent. Well done.
What's that?
Your marketing is excellent.
Yeah, we talked to each other just before.
The second question is what he was asking about, not able to change the namespace. Is there a solution for it, or how did you get?
Yeah. In fact, as I run in this issue, what you have to do right now is to write ObjectScript code, an helper method in ObjectScript that changes the namespace, and after you go this way, in fact. But I'm pretty sure there will be an helper library who will help you to do that in pure Python way. It is not a big issue.
You
Right.
could
But
call
it's
that
one of those
function.
many, I think,
Yeah, in fact,
niddling
right.
things that
You build a
that we haven't
function,
quite
and then
gotten
start
to
change
yet.
it.
Yeah, and execute it in Python.
Yeah.
So then you're
And,
done.
in fact,
But
now
yes,
we-
there's a workaround. For almost all of these, there's a pretty straightforward workaround. It's just, yeah, we should make life easier.
Yeah,
That's all.
it's not a big deal.
Other questions, comments? Anyone want to? Nathan?
Thank you. This is not a use case, but it's 2 follow-up questions. Number 1, you mentioned this YouTube video. I was just wondering, from a practical aspect, would it be possible to add that URL somehow to the course materials? Presumably, we're going to get course slides, course materials available online after this is all done. I wonder if it could be added.
I have no idea. I'll assume the answer is sure.
Okay, just a thought. And, I'm sorry? Did you?
No, this video, there is a part that belongs to InterSystems. There is a public part, so I have to edit the video if we make it public.
Okay, that was number 1. And number 2, the example I was at the previous panel discussion, and the example you showed was IRIS embedded, pardon me, Python embedded in ObjectScript. You're talking about doing it the other way around, and I had not actually understood how that works when you're calling ObjectScript from Python in the kernel. Can that be done, or are we simply talking about the usual gateway method, or the gateway and native API methods?
Right. So embedded Python doesn't use any of the gateway or the native API at all.
Right.
It loads Python into memory with the IRIS kernel. So they're fused together in the single process. And everything that gets passed back and forth between the languages, it's just function calls in C and pointers and memory references.
I understand that, but if you're initiating it from a Python script, can you run a Python script and have that run directly in the kernel? Or does it have to be Python embedded in a cost class?
You have access to a Python shell. There is, and this Python shell is called Iris Python. It's a Python shell. So you go whatever you want. You type Iris Python. It's one word, and whatever you want behind. And I have a demonstration of a Flask API. You can have a Flask API run directly in the kernel of Iris.
Thank you. My apologies if this is repetitive.
No, it's fine.
No, that's a,
Thank you.
that's a
this
that's a
reminds
very
me,
important
though,
question.
of a little known fact. You know how you're all used to typing IRIS session and then your namespace to start a session? If you type IRIS Python and then a namespace, it will start a Python shell in that namespace for IRIS. It makes life a little easier. Other things, yeah.
And this applies to not just embedded Python, but all 5 ways that you can Python with Iris. But how about any Python 2 support at all? You guys haven't really mentioned it.
No Python 2 support in any of them.
That's what I thought the answer would be. But.
Yeah, sorry about that. Well, actually, I'm not really sorry about that. You shouldn't be using Python 2 anymore.
I haven't looked at the Python integration in any length of detail, so sorry if the question is not relevant, but to understand, would you be able to do an entire project just using Python if you didn't have a legacy system to convert?
Yeah.
So the question was,
Can you be pure Python without any legacy application? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So would you be able to do a complete project without any object script?
Yeah.
Okay, that's the
maybe
question.
you would like to see a demonstration. And just to let you know, the community, I'm really involved in the community. If you don't know the community, go to community.intersystems.com. There is a neat community, and maybe there is some value member here. And yeah, and there is some. One of our community members, who is called Dimitri, built the Django adapter ORM for Iris. You go pip install Django Iris, and you can work with the Django framework natively.
so Django is a very popular web framework for Python. Since we have some Python people and some object script people here, I figured I'd just explain. Other questions, stories about how you think we should use it, or you'd be interested in using it?
When you said that Python and the kernel of Iris communicate via C pointers and memory, does that mean that you can pass complex objects like JSON structures or represented as JSON to Python and have them passed by reference and use them in the calling object script method?
Yes. The pass by reference is an interesting, so how references work in object script of output parameters, Python doesn't have that equivalent. But other than that, everything that you just said, 100% true, right? So I could create an Iris object of my class, and then I could pass that in as a parameter to a Python function, and they could call methods and accessors on that as if it was a Python object.
But I cannot use it as a return value.
No, you can return from Python. You just have to return whatever your Python structure is.
Right.
And that could be however nested and deep, and it could be a Python class, or it can just be a, JSON or whatever that you need.
And to help you also with embedded Python, you have a function called ref or gref, if I remember well. In fact, it's a special variable you can create in Python, and this variable, you can put it as a reference to your function, Iris function, for the by reference.
You can call an Iris function
You
that,
can call
that has an output parameter.
Right,
Yes.
yeah. You can do
But,
that in
but you
Python.
can't do
It's
it the
possible.
other way around.
Okay, this is what you do, Ronald, when you call Iris functions from Python? You or do you just use SQL statements to execute stored procedures?
Yeah, we usually, our old functions usually set globals and store the data and return simple values. So that's, especially in the very old code, we don't really use objects. So, but I mean, we were able to execute functions to perform various tasks in our old structure. So this is pretty simple use for embedded Python in that particular case, but it's what we need to keep it up running. So
So
But
you
it's
can
extremely
directly
powerful.
call an
yeah,
sorry.
that's extremely powerful.
So you can directly call an int routine you have.
Yeah, or you could call it like a class. I'm not sure if you can call a label yet in an int routine,
No.
but you can wrap it in a class method. So
Yeah,
and just
right.
call it there.
Okay, thank you.
So my question is just about the classes, like if I built a class in IRIS and, creating a new class, can I do that, create that new class within Python? Like when I'm over in Python?
Yeah.
And so do you just use that, like you're saying, IRIS Python dot, whatever? Okay. And then,
And after you can play as it was a Python object.
okay.
I can show you. I have a demonstration of that.
Yeah, okay, thank you. All right, well, all I have left to do is to thank our panelists. They did a fantastic job.